Are we live?
Yes, we are live. Happy New Year.
Happy
How
New
are
Year.
you, George?
I'm doing fine, Mimi, and so happy that we are gathered here for this live conversation with our followers. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been 2 weeks of just reflecting and also ushering in a new year.
Have you
And
been reflecting? Because I've been resting and relaxing
no, no,
and
no. I reflect. I do reflect
celebrating.
a lot. Well, I do reflect in my celebratory mood. So as I was
Oh,
reflecting, of course, because you can't really shut off completely from work.
right.
Sometimes you just put it at bay, but you know that we'll pick it up. And of course, as you know, under the Baobab, we normally do our preparations. But let me just introduce first what we are doing, and then hello to all our YouTube and Facebook followers. My name is George Okachi. The pretty lady is seated. I don't know. Will you be seated on the left or
Yes.
right? Yeah,
Yes, my
she's
name is
filming.
Mimi Mefo and yes,
We are the
always
host.
beside George. Yes.
Yes, we're the host of this wonderful podcast that we started, which has really grown in huge support of our community. It's called Under the Baobab, and it's one of our flagship podcasts under the English for Africa, that is DW. And Under the Baobab basically is a podcast for you, and we discuss topics that are pertinent to you as our followers, as our community member. And basically what we normally do is we hold people to account, people whom you've asked us to hold to account, and we're talking about government official, policy makers, and people of interest, and we hold them to account on issues that are pertinent to your daily life. We're talking about access to electricity. We're talking about access to water, basic needs, the things that really matter to our normal living. So it's been some months since we started Mimi, and I should say like it started in 2025.
Yes, 2025, I think mid 2025, and we've made so much strides so far. We've spoken to a lot of policymakers, like George is saying. We've spoken to politicians, opposition party leaders. We've also spoken to ministers, a lot of ministers who are leading in different countries, leaders of political movements. Like when we went to Nigeria to speak to the head of the Labour Party,
Mhm.
that fielded Peter Obi as candidate during the previous election in Nigeria. So we spoke to the former Senator Nenadi about, the future of the Labour Party and some of the things that are brewing within the party. So we've also spoken to even ministers of environment in Liberia and in
Mhm.
Zimbabwe as well. We've also gone to Zimbabwe to speak to an opposition leader in a country where crackdown is rife, where freedom of expression is almost impossible. The politician speaking even from outside the country was still feeling very scared for his safety.
Yeah,
We've
yeah, and I remember
also
the interview we did with the Zimbabwean opposition figure. He
right.
was, doing that in his hideout. He said so.
Yes, from his hideout. So we've spoken to people like that, and we've also gone to South Africa just once to talk to a group that is very, very controversial.
Mhm.
Really, some people in South Africa would see them as, the future of the country, but others will see them as divisive and xenophobic. So I'm
Mhm.
talking about Operation Dudula,
Mhm.
that went about, taking people out of schools and hospitals on grounds that they were illegal or that their status in the country was not regularized. So
Yeah.
they were taking that authority to do so and take people out of hospitals, take illegal migrants from schools. And we
That
had to
was so
really
time to.
question them.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah, it
And we
was
had
so
to
timely.
question
Maybe.
them.
Mm.
Mhm. Yes, go ahead, George.
No. Continue. I'm just corroborating that it was so timely that we had to speak to the figureheads within Operation Dudula, and also just having a conversation around their perceived xenophobic, tendencies, and their anti-migrant rhetoric in South Africa, and it was just a deep dig into what are they standing for, and what do people in South Africa really, view them or perceive them. Is it the right direction of, dealing with the issue of illegal immigrants in a particular country? And it was a very powerful interview, I must say.
Right. And one thing about Operation, what when we're having the conversation with Operation Dudula, we were kind of trying to see where they were coming from and why they keep picking on Africans only, and especially people from countries like Nigeria, Zimbabwe, neighboring Malawi, and so on. We went even as far as questioning whether they were taking power in their hands, whether they were playing the role of authorities and why. Because the explanation was they were stepping in where authorities, the officials have failed. That was their own justification, and they said clearly that they were anything else than the xenophobic, which you and I argued when we were having that conversation.
Yeah.
And you were seeing reasons with them and kind of saying, oh, they could be right to say that, oh, if someone is in our country and having the access to the things that we need, but their
Mhm.
status is not regularized, they have the right to go against that. But how far can you go? Does it mean, or does it allow you or give you the right to put the lives of others in danger while implementing your own policy?
Mhm.
So the question was, it was not a bad idea to fight for your country and what is good for your country, but just how far can you go? So there was that thin line between where their policies were and what human rights, I mean, the thin line between their policies and human rights violations. And we also heard reports of people that were brutalized, reports of unconfirmed reports of people that died as a result of Operation Dodula.
Yeah,
George.
which pretty much I totally agreed, Mimi, that of course we were interrogating uh, to what extent they can go within their, anti-immigrant, illegal immigrant, push, and and
Mm,
um, and it was very clear during the entire conversation that when it borders, violating human rights, denying people access to, healthcare that is so needed. It doesn't matter if you're coming from Zimbabwe or Botswana. If you're sick and you are in a hospital, you must be attended to first, and then issues of your legality into this particular country can be, discussed further in other avenues, for the lack of a better word. And also them. Taking over, like usurping the power of the government, the authorities, to
the
actually
population
control,
there were people from the
say,
hospitals.
issues
And I'm
of
sure that
illegal.
is a conversation you had with Zandile.
Yes, let's hear what had a response, Zandile's response on what really guide their stance
what's that
against migrants
interruption? Sorry
accessing
about it.
hospital and schools. Let's hear what she
Yeah,
had to say.
We
Sorry,
are
that
guided
should
by the
be from my end,
Constitution, and we
actually.
also
Apologies
have
for that.
immigration laws. Now, one of those laws.
yeah.
Okay, so yes, we
Let's
can
listen
just
to
be
it.
looking at her
Yeah,
while.
this is the interview. Just to recap on what we discussed actually. Just maybe if you can
Uh,
increase the volume.
okay, so I was just thinking that, okay, yeah, so we can listen to her just briefly. Please,
Mm.
for those who are following us, feel free to drop your comments. We'll be happy to read them while we have this conversation with you. We just thought, like, okay, there was no episode of Under the Baobab this week, and last week we were with our TikTok people. They were so engaging, and they were really interested in this conversation. And we just thought like we should bring it to YouTube and Facebook, and also hear from the people on here what they think about some of the topics that we've discussed under the Baobab, and also hear from them. Do they have any suggestions? Do they have any ideas? Do they have any thoughts on some of the topics that we've handled so far? So feel free to drop your comments. We'll be happy to hear from you wherever you're watching us from. Please also share with others. So yes, this is the Operation Dudula leader. Certainly, maybe we can move to something else. But one of the things that we discussed with them, we also have Kalechi, who is in the background, George. We try to find out how we got here. In a country where we know that Nelson Mandela was like some sort of a unifier. People, when we are talking about, African unity, oneness in Africa, when we are talking about, the whole concept of Ubuntu, we think of Nelson Mandela. But when we covered Operation Dudula, we had the feeling that we're drifting away from that whole notion of, one Africa. So that's the idea that I had. I don't know for you, George, and for those who are following us.
Yeah, definitely. And when we spoke to Zandile, and Zandile is the lady, for those who don't know, the lady who is currently appearing on the screen. She's the leader of Operation Dudula. What came out strongly from her is that they are not against immigrants, or rather migrants or their neighbors from other countries. But what they are standing against is illegal immigrants who are coming to access their resources, which in her view are limited, are not enough for the South Africans. They feel like the country's authorities, country's leadership has not done enough to make sure that South Africans are sufficiently, catered for with the resources they have. And therefore, it defeats the logic why the country should be comfortable to allow people who don't have the right to access basic services like medical services or education or name it. So that was the argument. And what comes out clearly is maybe the methodology they are using. They could be having a right in what they are standing for, but the methodology, when it borders, say, violation of human rights, when it borders denying someone access to basic need like health during need, then that is something that is questionable, and that's why we had the conversation.
So also this was an episode that really did well on social media, George, because we had a lot of people reacting. I want to read some of the comments from the audience. There was this Anol Bulani who said that we don't run the country by emotions, we run the country by laws, which is very valid. There's also Gasalam Gambi who says that I am a Tanzanian living in Tanzania, South Africa. Keep your country, fight for your country. So there's a Tanzanian who thinks that Operation Dudula members were correct. And then we also have Nomle Rulashi who says that funny enough, foreigners are fighting for free services in this country, forgetting to fight and fix their own countries. When I see and when I spoke to Zandili, I get where they were coming from. So I some sort of see the far right ideologies that we have been seeing also in Germany. We've been seeing these far right ideologies in the UK, where people have the idea of us first before foreigners. We agree that it's all right, but you ask a very important question: how far can we go while implementing that?
Yes.
And I also hear, George, that they've been banned, which is quite unfortunate.
Yeah, they were ordered actually to stop blocking, foreigners from accessing Medicare, because these people were doing what they call citizen arrest, so to speak. They would stand in front of a medical facility and try screening you if you come for your medical need. I remember during the interview, you did ask her, I mean, if I'm sick, I need to go to the hospital. You don't need to actually screen me before you give me, the medical attention that I need. And she asked you if someone is in the hospital to do to follow up on the ARVs, the HIV medicine. Is it something urgent? And I remember it got emotional at some point. You insist if she sees you in the hospital, it means that you are in need of that service in the hospital, and therefore someone must be allowed first to be attended to, and then thereafter issues of their legality in the country can be questioned.
So our viewers, we don't want this to look like an Under the Baobab episode. This is just a very relaxed kind of conversation with you. We didn't want to, just leave our audience, our viewers for 2 weeks straight without coming to speak to you and ask you what do you think about some of the topics that we've covered under the Baobab. For instance, we've just been talking about Operation Dudula. If you're just joining, I see Tamale Solomon talking about Uganda. I also see Nakak Wa Prosi talking about Uganda, which brings me to George. We need to go to Uganda to talk about Uganda.
Uganda, we must talk about Uganda, definitely. Of course, everybody knows that in about it's hardly a week, and then people are headed to the elections. We don't know who will be elected the leader, and of course, it's an election, a high-stake election. We've seen opposition figure Robert Chagulanyi mounting a very spirited campaign. Also, the NRM with the incumbent president Yoweri Museveni also selling out their policies. So it's a choice that Ugandans, they have a date with their choice in what will lead them to the next 5 years. And it's important to talk about Uganda at this particular juncture. I have vested interest in Uganda as well.
Because you are a Ugandan.
Yeah.
And we are hoping that President Museveni is going to come under the Baobab and tell Ugandans what he's planning to offer.
He should
after
come.
over 40 years of ruling the country. What is he going to be offering to the Ugandan people that he's not been able to offer for the past 40 years? So we'll be happy to have him also under the Baobab. So watch this space, and we will try to get President Yoweri Museveni, because we already had Bobby Wine in one of our episodes, George.
Yes, we had Bobby Wine in one of our heated episodes. I must say it was a very powerful interview that you had with Bobby Wine. I really benefited from the line of your questioning, and then pinning him down into telling Ugandans it's not about seeking for change, but rather what would change look like under Bobby Wine, and him trying to defend that actually at this particular moment, all they care about is just ensuring that President Museveni and the NRM brigade are out before they can begin, modeling economic policies that can, govern Uganda in the coming years. So it was a very powerful interview. I don't know how you felt. You are a Cameroonian speaking to Bobby Wine. Would you have voted for him, say, after the interview?
Don't ask me about. Don't ask me about who I'm going to vote. But I think that the fallout of the interview, actually, the interview resonated with a lot of Cameroonians, because and about 5 politicians sent the link to me after we did the interview. Cameroonian politicians.
Cameroonian
and I was quite amazed. Yes, they did. Usually they would only share contents that are related to Cameroon.
Yes.
But this time it was, far away, not even West, but East Africa, and an opposition leader in Uganda, Bobby Wine. And I was quite amazed, and they were saying that they are following Bobby Wine very closely to see how it's going to be like in Uganda. Cameroon also just an election just took place in the country and things are just going down. A lot of people still unhappy with the outcome and how their victory, their purported stolen, their purported victories were stolen by the regime that is in place. So when they look at Uganda, they are also watching closely to see what is going to happen, what is going to change. We know that Bobby Wine has been presidential candidate before. It's not the first time. But what will be different this time? What is Bobby Wine going to? Of course, he's talked about the protest votes. That is what he is leaning on this time around because he's been a candidate before. He says that just protest, show the regime in place, show President Yoweri Museveni and the ruling system in place that you are angry with bad governance, bad roads, on the development and the things that have not been going well in the country by just voting for someone else, and obviously me, Bobby Wine. So we are really looking, all eyes are on Uganda to see what is eventually going to happen. What the Ugandan people, are the Ugandans that we see on the streets going to turn out on the day of the election and vote for that change that they say they want to see in the country,
Yes,
and also defend.
Yes.
Yes.
Remember, Mimi, he really stressed and doubled down on protest vote has two words. There is protest and there is vote. He meant that he is okay with the vote. He has always been winning. He insisted, actually, you challenged him that he has not won any election because he is not president. But he insisted that he is the people's president. But he said in the protest vote, he has the word vote, which he is okay with. Now he is urging Ugandans after voting come 12th, they must protest and protect their ballot and their
victory. Yeah, which is you asked me if I was going to vote for him. The ballot is a secret, but of course, if I was given the opportunity, I'll vote for change in any African country, especially where young people are calling for change in a country where young people are, change is something that everyone wants to see. And even in basic, simple organizations, people yearn for change. What more of a country, run by the same system, the same person for more than 40 years? People are tired, they just want something new. They see that happening in smaller countries on the continent. They see that happening in Senegal, even in Nigeria, where things are not going well. We can see change in leadership after every two mandates, right? If a president rules for too long, it's not more than 2 mandates. The same in Ghana. We've seen changes in Malawi. We've seen changes, in neighboring countries. When you see those things happening, you ask yourself, what is happening with us? With Cameroonians who say, why are we praying and our prayers are being answered elsewhere? So I would obviously vote for change. And if that change is Bobby Wine, why not? I will vote for him. I didn't say I will vote for him, but if he's the change.
Yes.
So yes, so Kalechi is also in the background and he's also been following under the Baobab. Maybe he has some questions for us or some insights, Hi, Kalechi. You're muted, actually.
Yeah, you can hear me now.
Yeah, Happy New Year, Kalechi.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, and I think everyone has been following under the Baobab. I think it's a good show in West Africa. I mean, some of the television networks do broadcast the show, and obviously it's a nice concept to have a chat with people in leadership positions and get them to account, right? And I think you've been doing that. I heard both of you talk about the South African topic and also the Uganda topic. The South African topic for me, I just thought that it was an interesting and very relevant conversation because we have foreigners in every country, right? Africans across. And so obviously people wish that in Africa, if I'm a Ghanaian and I'm in South Africa, obviously I should be seen as a brother, right? And not to be seen as a foreigner in that context because I'm a Black, I'm a fellow African. and that's one thing I think that Malema has been preaching, that he believes that all Africans are Africans wherever they find themselves. So it's quite interesting that a group like that wants to still deal with the issue of if you are a foreigner, you did not have access to some kinds of services. But again, I think the underlying factor is that it's an issue about scarcity of resources, and also being able to ensure that citizens get what they need. And so once they are, it's like saying, if I'm full, then of course I don't care who else is eating, right? And so once a lot of South Africans have challenges, of course you will expect that. For example, in West Africa, we've had issues, for example, in the trading areas like the retail market, where you have Ghanaians who think that Nigerians have taken over the space. So it's the same kind of concept, right? But I think it's basically because of scarcity of resources, and so people will complain. So I just want to find out from you whether in that interview with the leader of the group, whether indeed they came to appreciate the fact, or she came to appreciate the fact that what will happen if that same treatment is meted out to South Africans in other countries, right? I don't know whether that came to the conversation.
It came actually. Mimi had a specific question. What will happen if Dudula treatment is meted on a South African elsewhere? And I remember, maybe before you get in, she said that if a South African is in Ghana and they, disobey the laws or they go against the law, then she will be happy if the South African is, removed or chased away from Ghana. That was the answer she gave us.
Yes. Wow. So yeah, that's what she said. Sometimes it's easier said than done, right? Or it's easy to say that it's okay to treat any South African the way you want, as long as they they fail to respect the rules of the land where they are living in. But when it eventually happens, you now see that the discussion would change. It's never a good thing to treat people. I know that they like you say, that there could be scarcity of resources. The people are fighting for what is theirs. They want things to be better. They want education to be the best, and only for South African first before anyone else. But I always also believe in, the spirit of sharing. I believe in, the spirit of unity. That's what I believe in, because I've also had the opportunity to welcome people in my own land, and I've been welcomed elsewhere as well. And imagine you go somewhere and you can't stay there because someone is telling you cannot go to the hospital, you cannot go to school because you are not from that land. It feels a bit.
Guys, let us not lose the focus that indeed, if it is illegal migrant who is seeking for this particular service, it must be established first that you are
illegal. Who is qualifying it illegal? The government or a group?
Illegal basically means, listen, Mimi. Illegal basically means that I come from, from where I am, and I go to Kalechi's, country in Ghana without, proper documentation, and I expect to live as if I am a Ghanaian. That is existing in our space illegally. If I was to follow the due process, go to the immigration offices, says that I am in this particular country because of purposes of visiting, or for purposes of, ABCD, I'm seeking for asylum because in my country I cannot live, then I have the total right to exist in Ghana, given the permission, or, if I'm granted that stay with the authorities in Ghana. And therefore, it shouldn't appear as if we support people to live in other countries illegally.
Yeah, the thing about Operation. The thing about Operation Dudula was even people that were having legal documents. So because you can't just appear in a hospital without a paper or a document. Even in Germany, you can't just go to the hospital. They'll ask you for your insurance card. In the UK, for instance, you need an NHS number. You don't just appear in the hospital for treatment, even though medical access to healthcare services in the UK is free. but you need to be registered under NHS. You don't just appear and ask for, medications and so on. So we have also reports that people that were legally registered in the country were being pursued by Operation Dudula members before Kaleji comes in. I just wanted to make that point clear.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That I mean, these are things that happen in various countries. There are people who have some ideologies, right, who think that things must happen a particular way. And of course, the system will have to deal with that. But I am just thinking we need to deal with the underlying factor, right? So these political activisms will continue, and there's nothing you can do about them. But the question is, how do governments deal with these underlying triggers, right? And I think that every country can relate to this. Yeah, I mean, if you're in a country where you think a lot of foreigners are in your country, and of course, South Africa has a peculiar case, right, where you have a lot of people from the southern part of the continent do go there, right? So obviously, they will have such concerns, and especially when ordinary South Africans, especially the blacks, obviously have challenges accessing healthcare, the same healthcare, accessing or having access to jobs and all kinds of services. They would definitely naturally resent, right? And so I understand that, but I think, like we have said, it ought to be done the right way. If someone is undocumented in your country, there are rules and regulations, right, that governs that, right? It's not like just oh, I want to get them out.
Yeah.
But governments must deal with the situation or what is triggering that. Yeah.
Yes, also there's Hilary Moore, who has
Yeah.
just commented saying that he is watching from South Africa, particularly Johannesburg. He says that Mimi and George, thanks for bringing political news across Africa close to the people. Thank you. And we also have, Hilary also said that George and Mimi, my pleasure always watching the program under the Baobab. Thanks. Yeah.
For Uganda, I mean, I think that this month will be interesting to see how elections will go. But of course, I know for George, who is from Uganda, I mean, many people are not in Uganda, but I guess the question will be whether there's really any kind of strong opposition to President Museveni, right? Because yes, we saw what happened in the previous election where Bobi Wine actually made some inroads, but of course not enough to trouble the old man, right? And I think that comes to the issue of, again, activism and politicking and how strong opposition parties can be in countries where you really are desiring change. Again, it's the citizens who decide whether they want to change or not, right? Once there's free and fair election. But I'm just wondering whether you think really that he believes that he can really make a change, right? He can win the election, right? Because
but you see,
numbers at rallies, and one thing really having the number of people who are at home who really don't go for their rallies, really voting for you.
Yes, and that is one thing I wanted to point out where you've left it, Isaac Kalechi, and it was one of the questions that Mimi did pose to Bobi Wine, that online is very popular, and when you look at if the elections were to be held online, then he would definitely be sweeping majorities. But that is not a reflection when it comes to the real, polling day. And I remember that he mentioned he did, punched holes into the electoral system. He said that all along he has been winning, actually, but it was a claim anyway that he has been winning, actually, but his victory has been stolen over time. And it doesn't, it discourages us to discuss issues of, broken electoral systems within different countries, not only unique to Uganda. And it is something, as journalists also, we will be very keen into looking into if indeed this particular election, 2026 election, will, tick the boxes of, free and fairness that is so much desired in a strong democracy. And I think that is something many Ugandans will be going to vote, will be keen to see. And I remember last time when we had a discussions around elections, we did double down on the point that people want to exercise their civic duty. But at the end of the day, they really want their vote to count, because it defeats the logic why I came out to vote and it is not a reflection of what I did. And then it encourages the voter apathy that we've been seeing, bringing down a lot of young people who are potential voters.
Mm. Yes. Okay, so yes, about Uganda, and we also want to promise our viewers that a lot will be coming up under the Baobab before and even after the election. We'll try to look at, question the role of the Electoral Commission and how transparent the said commission is, which is in charge of organizing and publishing the results of the election in Uganda. I would also be talking to, other key members of the ruling NRM party, because we've already spoken to the spokesperson. And you did the interview, Judge, Mr. Emmanuel Dombo, who was very categorical that all is well in the country, and that Uganda is not just very peaceful, but it's also very welcoming to foreigners, and that people from outside the country can visit and live peacefully.
Yeah.
Which actually shows that the country is all is well in Uganda. And even when he watched, we told him about reactions from ordinary people in Uganda, from people there. He said that it doesn't really reflect what is happening on the ground, because as far as he's concerned, all is well. So yes, maybe you can just, how did you feel hearing all of that, and also being a Ugandan, George? How did you feel?
It brought the feeling of elitism. We've called it elitism, whereby a few sections within a society feel like all is well, yet a huge section and majority are always in the grassroots. They feel like the country is being misrun. And that is exactly the feeling that we did get as far of response after the interview we had with the NRM spokesperson, Emmanuel Dombo. Dombo insisted that President Museveni is the beacon of stability that Uganda has been having. He insisted that President Museveni has, spearheaded a lot of developmental projects which have led to, employment for Ugandans. But when we spoke to Ugandans on the ground, they were saying that the reality is not similar to what is being expressed by these elites within the NRM. So my question to him actually was, is this, development only being felt by the people, who support NRM, people who sit with the president, the elite within the NRM, rank and file? And of course, he argued and threw in figures here and there. And we've always argued about figures as well, that sometimes figures are so, glossy and shiny. But when you go to the ground, people are still, struggling with the basics.
Right. So, yes, before Kaleji comes in, with Dombo, actually, it was not very different from the deputy minister, the Minister of Justice in Cameroon, who was defending BI. I remember the interview that we did also. He was under the Baobab. And this is what Under the Baobab is. For those who are just joining, this is a review of Under the Baobab. We are just looking back at some of the discussions that we've had in the past, and what will be coming this 2026, because it's going to be a very busy year for us, interesting, intriguing, and also we will be talking more of accountability, but also very solution oriented, which has always been the whole idea of Under the Baobab. When we bring the leaders and ask the hard questions, we also try to kind of balance it and see what is the way forward. How can these problems that we are raising in these discussions be solved? So we spoke, you can see we spoke to Bobby Wine, and then we spoke to the spokesperson of the ruling party in Uganda. And if you permit me to read some of the comments that came in from Uganda, there's Shafiq Kaboy, who says that voting makes absolutely no sense when votes are rigged and using our taxpayers' money. And then another person just said, thank you for the show. But one Thomas just says that thanks, Emmanuel, for enlightening the world. So while other people are very angry, there's someone who is happy that he's very articulate and that is enlightening people in the world. And there was also Athens who said that Museveni dynasty or regime would one day come to an end. Then also, as I'm a Nigerian and I am speechless, can I say my country is better? No. What do these people want with our lives? Imagine someone ruling for good 39 years. That means he started ruling before I was born. So this is AJ Mercy saying,
But is there a problem? Is there a problem with someone ruling forever, Isaac?
Well, I think naturally people will want to see change, right? Because I mean you can't eat one food for a long time, right? You want some variety. So I think for democracy, I think the issue is that if we can have variety of ideas and we can have different people trying to come and fine, but it's also about what works for a society, right? I think the most important thing is to have a system where the voices of the people, those voices are heard. I mean, if we have made rules, right, that say, okay, you could only contest for 2 terms or 3 terms, right, and we can stick to that, and we believe that there are other people with some ideas, I think that helps, because again, the danger then would be that if you have a leader in power for a long time, exiting becomes a problem, because again, institutions have not been built well, we've not had successors, people have been groomed in, and also sometimes people who are around these leaders who feel comfortable and protected are afraid of losing that influence if that leader leaves, right? So you can see that sometimes the leaders themselves may not want to be there. And again, this comes to the issue of Cameroon, for example. I'm wondering whether indeed Paul Biya really would think that at this age, he really wants to really concern himself with governing the country, right? In terms of taking decisions, critical decisions.
What do you mean? He wants to. That's why.
I'm asking that because I just think that maybe some leaders just want to let go, but people around them would say no because of what the benefits, right? So sometimes it's a complicated issue. And I'm saying that, for example, if you look at Ghana, we've just had the former president now coming back to become President Mahama, and he's yet to even, of course, cross 1 year since he came to power, right? And of course, you have people saying, oh, we need to let him go for another term. We want to change the constitution and make sure that he goes for another term, right? He has said he's not going. But I'm saying it just tells you that even if those messages are coming from people around him, they're already thinking about what benefits them, right? And not what we have laid down as a society. So sometimes the leaders...
what is good for the country.
Exactly. I remembered, for example, Paul Kagame saying he was not going to contest again, right? And then we see him in there. I know even Museveni has even contemplated, right? But again, people are around. So one other thing I want to talk about is that if we want to see change in our countries where we've seen leaders in for a long time, it ought to be inclusive. People have to work. We need to get our hands dirty, right? We can't sit on the fence and say, oh, we need to have change, and we complain about this person. Why is it there for a long time? If you don't go and get registered, if you don't get the right documentation, if you don't talk to others and convince them as to why there should be a change, the status quo will remain during elections, because there are people who still believe that, well, it's better. We don't know what we will get if we change. So it's better off be in the same situation. So because people will not know what will happen if Museveni is not there. What will happen? I mean, so they will think that, okay, let's just remain with him. But again, if proper politicking is done, we could understand that we should build institutions, we should build systems that can outlive individuals. And I fear for Uganda, if Museveni leaves, will we have a peaceful process? Will we have a very stable process? Because he has been there for a long time. And so what will happen? So these are some of the things that Ugandans have to think about if really we want to have change.
Yeah, that transition is always a very big problem. But if everything goes through the ballot, I think he should be able to, just follow the normal procedure. But like you said, there are always people around not wanting to see that change happen. And we've had those allegations also in Cameroon of de facto leaders that are there, and Biya is just, the face behind those really governing the country. Like the Secretary General, the presidency is been alleged to be the country's de facto president. I mean, we've seen him feature even on international media, has talked about him, featured him, looking at who is this person, who is this particular individual. And we've had instances where Biya has signed so many decrees from abroad. He's always, doing a lot of things from Switzerland, making a lot of people to ask questions. But Kaleji, you just mentioned Ghana, which was one of the countries that we also went to. We were questioning accountability or witch hunt when it came to the, one of the,
how far
biggest,
now? How far with that?
one of the
remember
biggest
that show very well.
policies
Yeah, I remember
of
that show
President
very well.
Mahama was to quash. Is it this quashed or quash? Sometimes the French and English words look at it, they say they sound like they're the same, but I think he came in, guns blazing to end corruption and fight mismanagement of public funds and corrupt officials. And a lot of people were being tried, a lot of people were being called for questioning. And we had to interview the communication minister.
I think the right word is people were being called for questioning, right? I mean, I think there was some kind of because of the previous regime, right? And what really triggered, I mean, the kind of electoral victory he had. So people were expecting that people who were deemed to be corrupt were dealt with, right? So you will expect that kind of expectation. That, I mean, once there's a change of government, I mean, but again, you cannot just go in and just take people you perceive to be corrupt and just lock them up, right? The process has to be there. And I think that's what really gets some people frustrated that, yes, he came in with a slogan which was, Operation Recover All Loots, right? And we've not had the kind of expectation people had. But we've also had some cases that are already in court, right? I mean, we have several institutions trying to investigate people and get them prosecuted. But of course, it will take time. And I think that's what a lot of people don't really anticipate, that the fact that you perceive that someone is corrupt will not hold water in court, right? You need to really prove a point or prove your case that this person is corrupt. I think one strategy the Attorney General has had was to address the public about the cases they are following. And sometimes it gets people really talking. But obviously, others will also say, I mean, go to the court and then prosecute the case there and let's see some results. I know we know of the former finance minister who is currently in the US, and Ghana is trying to get him extradited to Ghana and face the law. But these things will take time. I just think that whilst we try to deal with people who have been found to be corrupt, we also need to make sure that we don't have some of these cases repeating. Other than that, we're not making progress, right? As a country.
But how far is this purge on corruption in Ghana? I mean, you came from you are there, Isaac, and you would know how far the president is and how people have perceived it.
Yeah, like I said, I think people were expecting a lot, right? That by this time we should have people who are already in jail who have got the monies that they've stolen, perceived to have stolen. And I'm using the word perceived, or because again, you need to prove it, right? So yes, we could have people alleged to have been corrupt, but you need to prove it. And in court, it takes time. And I'm saying that there are some cases that are currently in court, yes, that they are being prosecuted. We have a number of people who have been questioned, who are arrested and questioned and all that. That process will take place. It is not overnight. So it's understandable for Ghanaians to be frustrated because they want to see action, right? But it's also about democracy, that you need to let rule of law be there. Yes, if you think that people are corrupt, prove it. if you don't prove it, then it means that you are making just noise in opposition about their corruption, right? And you cannot prove it. I would say that let's allow the process. Let's let people who are accused to defend themselves. And if indeed the court finds that they are guilty, then they are given the right punishment. But let's make sure that the current government doesn't repeat what's happened in the past, which means that we need to make sure that even those in government now are properly monitored and held to account for whatever they are doing.
You know, there's always the whole idea of, okay, when the other leadership is coming, they are saying they would fight corruption, and when this one is leaving and the other one wants to come, they are saying that, okay, their main objective will be, you know, the fight against corruption. And also Galamsey, we're trying to see how we can also have a conversation about that.
Yes,
I know it's actually a really big topic now in Ghana. But I want to read a comment or two before I ask you one question, because, you know, it was a conversation and we spoke to the Minister of Communication in Ghana, but also we heard from opposition leaders about the whole, you know, fight against corruption. So Aziom says that President Mahama, in my view, has done the most for Ghanaians in the first 7 months in office. We have seen drastic drop in cost of food items and fuel, which is key to the basics of living as a Ghanaian. So that is what he thinks. And then Kasa Fadi says that corruption will never go away in Africa. And Yimbi says that his corruption fight is going very slowly. Like you've just said, now you've clarified that, you know, it doesn't just take, you know, you are guilty and then you are sent to jail or the funds are recovered. And then, so trending news says that I think both a corrupt person is an enemy. So yes, these are the conversations that we had inbox people in our different social media platforms. For those who are wondering, where are we getting this comment? If you want to watch the full episodes of Under the Baobab, you can find them on our YouTube channel or on our website. You just have to go to DW Africa on YouTube, and you see the playlist. There's a playlist Under the Baobab, so you can see the Operation Dudula episode. You can see the one on Ghana and the various episodes that we had on Uganda. So there was also a line of discussion about the opposition saying that it was witch hunt, and that they were not happy about it. That most opposition leaders were being targeted. Is that the feeling you had, Kalechi?
Yeah, I mean, it's expected for opposition to complain. I mean, where I stand as a journalist, there have been a lot of investigative reports done by journalists, of course, in the previous regime. Those reports point to corruption, right? Corrupt individuals actually who have looted the state's funds. But again, like I said, you need to still submit those to a prosecutor to go to court and be able to prove in court that they've done A, B, C, D. And when you are dealing with people who have been in government before, obviously they will claim that they are being hunted, right? And it's expected of them to but you don't have to necessarily say because someone complains of being witch hunted, you won't go ahead and deal with the situation if indeed the law is being applied. So it's expected they will complain. I don't think that really how do you call it, waters down the fact that we had concerns about corruption in the previous regime, and they ought to be dealt with so that people can have confidence in public, in political leaders, and ensure that we don't have a repetition of that. But I mean, it's a political space and people are allowed to speak out, complain, or let's say give their views on issues. And it's part of democracy, right? That yes, they can speak out. But again, the court is where everything has to be dealt with. Yeah. And that is where the problem is. Yeah.
Yeah. So for this year, we will try to go beyond, looking at corruption. We'll try to stay in Ghana to talk about, Galamsey, that is, a huge scandal at the moment in the country. We also, George, we're thinking about so many topics in Ghana, and I think we discussed that with Khalidi as well.
Yeah, and one thing, Kalechi, that President Mahama did promise was, the reset of the economy, and we remember Ghana being in the news and being ridiculed over the IMF, debt. And the restructuring hula baloo. So that is something we want to follow up and see where is Ghana so far, and I'm sure many Ghanaians will be very happy to know what are the sort of reforms this current government has put in place to cushion the country from that dip that the country went through.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fact that before the election, Ghana was really in that pit, right, of serious economic challenges. Of course, going to the IMF shows that indeed, yes, things were not okay. I think that 2025, there has been some effort to stabilize things. I mean, everyone will attest to the fact. But again, it also will be that we have a mixture of factors. One, the government has tried to be disciplined when it comes to spending or fiscal discipline, which a lot of governments in Africa do not go by, right? So you budget and you don't go by it, right? So that is a challenge. But again, also we are in an IMF program, which means that obviously we need to abide by the rules governing that program. And I think largely Ghana's problem has been that once we exit the IMF, whether we still go by that discipline. But again, if someone gives you money, you need to go by the rules. But when no one is giving you the money again, what do you do with your own resources to stay within budget? So yes, we've had that stability, that the currency has stabilized. I mean, and so there's progress. I mean, we've had inflation coming down, so that has happened. I think that this year obviously ought to be building up of that, right? And for us to see whether was it just a honeymoon kind of impact, or these are real things that are happening. But I think that 2026 will be big for Ghana. So obviously, if you want to talk about whether we are making that economic recovery properly, it will be a good show for Ghanaians to know what really has happened.
Then also, and I tell you what, during the presidential election in Cameroon, a candidate emerged, Jack Boahagbe, who was a former IMF. He was having a very important position at the IMF. So he was no longer with the IMF. So he said he could speak now freely. But he was really, his policy was really economic driven, and he was talking about, really dissuading Cameroonians from borrowing. And then I was asking, but when you were there, what did you do to really stop this from happening? He said, you cannot do much when you are there. But when he left, he's now written a lot of books, saying that, this borrowing, he has a lot of ideas now put together, and it was really fascinating. I'm not a fan or an expert when it comes to numbers, but it was interesting to hear a politician really invested. That's the word I should use. He was so invested into seeing that Cameroon, and he was also really taking it beyond Cameroon and saying that he wanted to create a situation within Africa where countries in the continent will not have to rely on the IMF and some of these international institutions for borrowing and economic so he was just, his policies were really, really, really good, and I hope that Ghana can be able to recover from the economic problems that the country is facing now. But something that is coming up.
But Mimi, the fact is that, of course, where we were in 2024, obviously, the position is way better than that. That progress has been.
It's true.
Exactly. I think then there's a need for us.
But we cannot conclude until we hear from Ghanaians, even though I saw that comment.
Well, Isaac is a journalist, but he's a Ghanaian.
You're an elite.
No, but I'm just saying, consolidating that will be key. That is when is where ordinary people can really feel it, because if they see the currency stabilizing, they want to see prices come down, right?
Yes.
Or they want to see the rate of increment in prices to be a bit delayed, right? Not to be that sharp rise, right? So of course the president has said that he anticipates or he expects that they'll build on that. And what I'm saying is that the first year obviously can be quite a bit confusing. But in the second year, we will want to see whether indeed the things that have been achieved in 2025, really, we will have that solidified or things will reverse. But I just think whichever way it is, I think that governments must be disciplined. Whichever country we find in Africa that's been a problem with Africa, right? That we are not disciplined with our fiscal policies, and so we keep borrowing, and we think borrowing out of the problem or the trouble is the best way, but that is not really the issue.
I don't know whether... because we also had an episode on borrowing, and I was so because we're looking at the interest rates when it comes to Africa. Borrowing, the interest rate is so high, and you start questioning why should Africa, that is always described as the poor, African countries are described as the poorest. They have to pay so much interest when borrowing internationally compared to other countries. I've always asked that question, and those are some of the questions that we ask under the Baobab. And also in Ghana, because we are about to wind up, it's already 1 hour gone. It will be interesting to look at the NPP NDC. I've discussed that with Kalechi already. Why should we stick just to two parties? Yes. Is there any possibility to have like another, key opposition party come in to contest and possibly win the election? Should we always rely on the NPP and the NDC? I think that is going to be an interesting discussion.
Is that not better than Uganda?
Yeah, definitely.
Or even Cameroon, where we have about, I think, 20 or 10 candidates. And but at least you are certain with the NPP and NDC that there's change at some point. But maybe Ghanaians want more. There's always, people always want change.
Which is good, but I'm just saying, at least in Ghana, you anticipate that if this party is not doing well, and the other party, stronger party, gives us a viable alternative, of course, people will go and vote for that. So we can make progress and have.
It's quite commendable in terms of Ghana acting as a beacon of democracy in West Africa, where we are having peaceful transition of power and also fair political participation of different parties. This is something that has been really notable, I think, last year. And I believe Ghanaians want to build on that going forward, even into the next elections.
Sure.
Maybe with the independent candidates, we can see why they want to emerge and so on. Because I remember when we Cameroonians were voting, or English-speaking Cameroonians were voting to join the French part of Cameroon, the options were two. Do you want to gain independence by joining the French Cameroon or by joining the Republic of Nigeria? And people were protesting that we needed a third option, which was to gain independence as a separate entity, which is one of the reasons why we are where we are today. So we don't want people to come out tomorrow and say, oh, we didn't have a third option. So we are going to find out.
That's cool. Okay, so for me personally, I'm expecting to see more from Daniel Baobab. I'm hoping that we'll have more conversations. And I like the softer parts of the whole show where you're asking people questions beyond just the politics.
The politics and the public issues.
And I just wanted to appreciate those who have taken time to join us today. Hilary, thank you. Joseph Adamson, Medi Owakabi, and Nakakwa Prosi, I'm talking about those who have been commenting so far. And Tamale Solomon, for those that have not mentioned, just know that we really appreciate you for joining and for joining the conversation. So yes, under the Baobab, like I said, you can watch our latest episode. We are going to have the first episode for 2026 will be coming up next week on Friday. So stay tuned, and you can watch on our YouTube channel GW Africa. And we also, distribute like some sort of snippets of the various episodes on Facebook. The platform is DW Africa, and also on TikTok, DW Africa. And on our website, you can just go to dw.com/Africa. And then under the Baobab, you can add under the Baobab, and then you see all the under the Baobab episodes. George, also we are on TV, right? So you can tell the people.
Every Sundays, 14:30 UTC and 22:30. And Monday, there is a repeat, that is 7:30 UTC and 19:30 UTC. So you can always also catch that on DW TV. And one critical thing that we are insisting, this is a show for you. It's not a show that is just designed to tell you, we're not speaking to you and telling you things. We want you to come and be part of this entire conversation. The central part of Under the Baobab is the community itself and what the community says about these topical issues that we are bringing forth.
And most importantly, whatever topic you want us to look at, if you want us to pay attention to your country, to talk to a leader there, and head of an institution, if something is brewing where you are and you want us to look at it, you can reach out to us via email. I'm going to read out the email just now very quickly. It's the Africa Link email. Is africalink@dw.com, right? Yes. africalink@dw.com, just as it is pronounced. africalink@dw.com. Yes. Okay. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kalechi, for joining us today.
And our audiences can come back and watch this conversation later on, because of course to be on the page, on the channel, so they can come back and watch.
That's for sure.
As well. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for joining, Kalechi. Thank you, George. And yes, Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Looking forward to a vibrant one to Mimi and Kalechi as well.
Yes.
Okay, bye.
Just see you on air. See you on air.
Yeah, sure. You'll greet me there on air.